cotton mouth meteor.
I saw the light, and I realized because of a family member who's sick, I realized that this is actually medicine, and that what I've been fed for years was this propaganda.
The Bonkastere.
Baby girl, you're so damn fine, though. Wanna know if I can hit it from behind, though. I'm sipping on you like some fine wine, though. When it's over.
Yo, cannabis lovers, welcome to the Bonkcast, a podcast about people in cannabis. My name is Matt Meredith, and I am your host, your guide, whatever you want me to be, really. And today, on the 5th episode and the final episode of Season 1 of the Bonkcast, it is my great pleasure to be able to share the story of none other than Ophelia Chong. She is a cannabis entrepreneur, photography teacher, creative director, graphic designer, and others amongst in the cannabis industry, and the creator of Stockpot Images, which is a stock image company that provides images specifically for cannabis companies. And they also do other types of images like hemp, as well as diving into what was a really fun topic to talk about, magic mushrooms. I feel like Ophelia and I shared some really authentic conversations, and I really appreciate her telling her honest story. So I am very happy to be able to present, without any further ado, Ophelia Chong on the Bonkcast.
I love the cottonmouth too.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because not many people are using that,
Right.
and which is great because everything else has been used.
Right, and then the Cottonmouth Kings obviously were really popular.
Oh yeah.
And then I've seen someone recently followed me also called Cottonmouth Cannabis now.
Oh my
And-
God, there's
and
someone
it-
actually in it now.
It's
Okay.
funny because I long term want to be making merchandise, of course, and doing all of that full 9 yards.
You get to be famous. So,
Does she have a name?
Purple Punch.
Purple Punch.
Purple Punch number 3.
Welcome to the Bonkcast.
Thank you.
And thank
so happy
you-
to be here.
Thank you for having me in your space. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah, the Bonkcast is a podcast about people in cannabis, and it's just me getting to know you and about your experiences that you've gotten to have.
Well, it's good. It's a deep, rich 5-year history. I can't say I've been in as long as most people, but it's been really interesting the last 5 years. Oh my gosh, because one of my things is I'm very observant because I was a very shy kid. So
Yeah.
I would just watch people, see what they did, but watching people in cannabis has brought a lot of laughs to
Yeah.
my life.
That's good. That's
Oh,
good.
yeah.
No, you immediately started to dive in of what I wanted to ask you about, which was like kind of where did you grow up and what were your parents like growing up?
Sure. Well, I am Chinese Canadian. I was born and raised in Toronto. I became American citizen in 2000, which is really lucky I did because considering the climate now and also with Google search and all that, people can really find out what you're doing and reconsider your pathway to citizenship. So with the work I'm doing now, it might hamper it, it might not, but I'm assuming it probably would. So I came to LA to go to college. I went to Art Center College of Design and then went into photography. So I basically had 6 careers. I really believe you have at least 6 careers, and each one builds on the other. So mine was in music photography. I shot for Raygun. And with David Carson, it was a seminal art magazine. It changed the way graphics were done. So either irritated you or made you really think about the visual impact of topography. So from there, I just shot for a lot of music labels
And
as
I'm
well.
sorry, when was that?
That was 1994. Right. 93, 94. So I was shooting a lot of music those years. And then I was taken by this film company, became a creative director. So we released about 50 films. Our films were in Sundance, because also that period too, the mid 90s, is when Sundance exploded, right? Sex Lies videotape with Steven Soderbergh and all the films that came out of Sundance. So we were on the cusp of that, and a lot of our films were at Sundance. and also we acquired a lot of films. And I became the creative director, released about 50 films. Then from there, someone saw me too, and I became the creative director for Slamdance, parallel with this, for 10 years. Slamdance is a film festival that began to at Sundance because they wanted to show films that weren't backed by a lot of money and first-time directors. So for that, it was 10 years. And then from there, I went to Voxy, which was Jennifer Aniston's website.
Okay.
Don't go there now because it's porn. They gave up the name, and so it's porn. From there, creative director for a publishing company, and I designed monographs for photography. From there, I got snagged again. I kept getting snagged over and over, and then finally came into cannabis.
Yeah.
So each career built up onto the foundation for the next.
And each career always had a creative
Yes.
job title. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always worked in images, about how images affected people. Beginning with music, film, and then print, and now cannabis.
Yeah.
Stock photography in cannabis and marketing.
And so congratulations on Stockpot Images, by the way. It
Oh,
seems
thank
like
you.
it's doing very well.
It's managed to survive, and luckily too is ancillary. So we partnered with people like companies like Adobe and other companies. But now also I see the next step, which we've started creating over a year ago, is psilocybin, also known as magic mushrooms, because I believe that is coming up as well with Oregon and Colorado trying to legalize it.
Yeah.
So that is now where cannabis was 5 years ago.
And thinking of like that in regards to my own analogy, I think of is Amsterdam and
Yes.
the legality that they have there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so mushrooms are next, and also we also have a hemp collection. What I do is I try to see where the trends are going,
Right.
and so mushrooms is next, because we already had hemp 4 years ago. Now we have also mushrooms coming up.
Right.
Yeah, so it's dealing with that.
That's exciting. That's interesting. I definitely saw on your Instagram about mushrooms, and I haven't seen the specific
It's-
ventures that you're a part of with it.
Oh yeah, because what's really fun about the naming of cannabis, the chemovars, and the naming of mushrooms, we go from God's Vagina, Alaskan Thunderfuck, to Penis Envy and Blue Meanies and Jedi Mindfuck. So it's kind of the same naming conventions. I'm not surprised anymore about what anyone names their chemovar or strain.
Right.
Because, yeah, we can go with that. We can go with that one too, but there is a Latin name for it. But,
Right.
But also with mushrooms, you can't breed them as well as you can cannabis. So there's going to be we're going to be rare, if at all, any strains in mushrooms that are bred from two other ones.
So lots of research and development can be done still on it.
Oh yeah, you just have to be in a lab with the spores and somehow work around their DNA. Where in cannabis is a lot easier to crossbreed.
Right. No, I watched a really interesting documentary on cannabis. I think I forget which Netflix series it is right now or HBO series, but it just does like a quick synopsis on how cannabis is basically as strong as it is now, and how we discovering the new, crossbreeding and how indicas can look like sativas now and vice versa.
And who knows what anything is anymore.
Yeah, at this point you gotta test it physically.
And also too, for me, sativas and indicas always work the same. Because I only smoke at night before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And I can tell you why. But for them, both of them work the same on me. Maybe a sativa will give me a little bit more, I'll get a little more anxious. But definitely they both put me to sleep. And choosing to smoke cannabis was a huge step, because just this week on March 18th, I celebrate 14 years of sobriety.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, of alcohol. But if anyone is in AA, you know that you can't do both.
Yeah.
Right? You are just basically, you're either sober or you're not.
Right.
So for me to smoke cannabis is stepping outside of that, but also a huge move for me too, because my issues with alcohol, I did not I know what my triggers are. And so for cannabis, I do not smoke during the day. I do not eat edibles or take tinctures or anything during the day, and only at night before I go to bed, because I use it as medicine to go to sleep.
Right.
It's not a recreational use for me. It's medicinal.
Yeah.
So that's how I had to flip it. That it's medicine, but you don't abuse medicine. And so
Right.
it's just basically a joint and maybe an edible at night.
Nice. Yeah, my dad actually is like 16, 17 years sober now.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I that story hits home a little bit for sure, actually, because my dad and I smoked together, and that was like a huge thing growing up. Was like, you know, my dad, I knew that when I was joining a fraternity that I was a little bit nervous, because I was like, I don't want to become reliant or like addicted to alcohol, because I know I have it in me. And
Yes.
I ended up joining, ended up being fine. My dad and I now have just like this really open communication about that. Like, it's like, I just posted it recently the other day, like 5 drunk guys will start a fight, 5 stoned guys will start a band.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very, especially, and congratulations for your father too, because
Thank
it we all make our choice to go sober for different reasons. And mine was, I just saw that I just couldn't live that way anymore,
Right.
and that eventually I was going to hurt a lot of people, and so I just went cold turkey. I still, in the first year, I would have nightmares of waking up thinking I drank, and I thought, oh my God, I went back, and then eventually, of course, it dissipated. But then again, coming into cannabis, I worried about that too, because probably your father knows too, there's certain triggers, and also there's an obsessiveness that comes with alcohol.
Right.
There is no way, you can't stop. And if you see a sale, you're going to buy 10 bottles, right? Thinking I'm saving money, but not thinking it's also going to kill my liver. But
Right.
that doesn't occur to you.
Yeah.
So smoking cannabis is a big decision for your dad, and was one for me as well.
My dad can thank my mom a lot too for being his number one supporter in that.
Aww.
So, but yeah, he quit cold turkey too. So I
Whoa.
that is very good for you and very difficult in any regard for any habit you have. Not even just like consuming anything, like any habit. Cold turkey is so difficult because you have a
Right.
neurological pathway that is telling you, I need this, you know? And it's like, you feel that way. I feel that way about brushing my teeth, right? It's
Right.
like,
Plus, also, we're marketed across the board with alcohol. And it's really hard to go into wine country and thinking, I reuse the Love Merlot and Pinot, and like, would it be so great to have a glass of... No. It is making a decision that you're never going to taste that for the rest of your life.
right.
Right? It's not saying that you will never wear yoga pants anymore. It's basically, you're never going to put that in your mouth. You're never going to experience it ever again. And that's hard, because you can say, I'm just not going to eat gluten for a week.
Right.
That's okay, but to say to yourself, for the rest of your life, you're never going to go near this again, is...
It's a big decision.
Yep. Yeah. And also, it's like, okay, what do we replace it with? All right, eBay. So I buy a lot of shit on eBay.
Just become a really badass businesswoman.
Well, occasionally that, but eBay. I buy stuff on eBay. Like, oh, I gotta get this for sure.
That's funny. Okay, so I have questions that I
Sure.
definitely was thinking of when I was. You're the person I've done the most homework on, because I'm like, Ophelia
Aw.
has a great career and I need to be prepared. So, what were your parents' feelings about cannabis growing up?
Oh, growing up, I'm sure they smoked. But they're fairly open minded to begin with. They're not your typical Chinese parents.
Right.
And even when I started Stockpot, my mom and dad were my biggest cheerleaders.
And are they first generation?
Yes,
Were they
they're
immigrants?
first generation. But also very creative too. My dad's a civil engineer, but he also opened up restaurants. My mom was a hotel developer. So they had a worldwide experience and were fairly open.
Right.
Right. So no blowback on that one.
That's good though. That's definitely. I was really curious about that, because you being as prevalent as you are now, I would assume that your parents openly support you a lot.
Yeah, my mom even fought back on a radio show, all Chinese radio show, about how cannabis is healthy, to all these trolls that called in, and called her names and everything. And so, but she went through it because there is a large segment of Asians that are very anti-cannabis right now, that are protesting a lot of dispensaries opening up in heavily Asian areas in California.
Interesting. That's super interesting. Yeah, my girlfriend is actually Filipino.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing a documentary right now, and her family just went to the Philippines and
Wow.
documented about that. And so it's actually a film about how her parents are first cousins.
Oh, interesting. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so that she just learned that though less than a year ago, and so did her older brother who's 32, and her older sister who's 27. And so it's like the story of her learning all of that. But talking about it with her mom though, she's still even talking. She watches all of my Cottonmouth Media videos. She's one of my biggest supporters, and she still has difficulty though. She finds it fascinatingly weird that we can talk about it.
Right. Well, especially coming from the Philippines with how they react to drug. Well, cannabis. I don't believe is a drug, but just I'm going to throw it into the pot. Drug use there.
Right.
So it can be very dangerous to be out and about and talking about it there.
Right.
But that's amazing. Yeah, it is acceptance. You just and also being able to listen is a big thing too for cultural life, for minorities.
Totally. And so obviously you're very involved. You have your
Oh yeah, Asian
nonprofit.
Americans for Cannabis Education. It was started because with two other women who've since left, that we didn't see very many of us in the business, right? So we
Right.
walk into a room, it'd be a lot of marshmallows, and you're looking for the raisin, right?
Yeah,
And you're
I watched that video.
Yeah.
I watched your Now This video, and
It's like, where
that
are
was
they?
hilarious. All these marshmallows.
I know. So finally, there's more. Now we're becoming more of a fruit salad.
There you go. There
But
you go.
back then we wondered why, and so Asian Americans for Cannabis Education was not to educate people who are not Asian about cannabis, but people who are, and try to dispel the stigma and mythology behind it.
Right.
And so that is what that is, and yeah, that's something else I manage as well.
Have you been getting any pushback? I was reading the comments on the video. The
No.
Now This video.
Oh yeah.
And there's definitely like something interesting is, are you aware of Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes.
Yeah, and do you ever listen to his stuff that he does?
Occasionally.
Yeah, he's interesting in his theories about human behavior. You know, he's very similar to you, very observant, always watching human behavior and adjusting his decisions based off of that. And people will be so quick to criticize something to fit their narrative or their agenda. But I think the things that you're doing overall, you know, with providing education, and you're leading with honesty and empathy, and
Oh, thank you.
it'll win out in the end.
Yeah, it's also the internet. I mean, when you go through Reddit,
Right.
it's sometimes I think, well, don't you people have something to do? And I think, oh, but I'm on here too. I should be doing something else. It's like, but I need to have my finger on the pulse.
Right.
Everyone has an opinion now.
Right.
Before you had to write a letter into the editor, and you actually had to have really great spelling and grammar to have it actually posted. But now, anyone is a full-on 100%, everyone can participate. So now we have to build more filters in. Before we didn't really have to have too many filters, because in print, they would only print letters that made sense. Now it's all out there, so you gotta be able to move past what is just someone who just has personal issues with everything and actually really great criticism.
Right.
So.
I love it when someone will give a really constructive comment on one of
Oh,
my
yeah.
videos, because I'm like, thank you. You're watching and you're caring enough to do this.
What is your address? I want to send you some
Yeah.
flowers, you know?
When can we hang out?
I know. Wow.
That's so funny. But so you're Canadian.
Yes.
I actually just learned recently that I'm also Canadian.
Which side?
I couldn't tell you.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of Canadians in this. And so Canada will recognize a dual citizenship. The states won't. So basically when I got my citizenship, I had to pledge my entire being and soul to the United States of America. But Canadians will still acknowledge me as a Canadian. So
Right.
I can always go back if I want to stay in the snow. But it's just nice to know you have that place to go.
Right.
Not that I really want to go there. But America, the States is my home.
Right.
And I love it here, regardless of, well, we can change some things, but we won't get into that. But I really love being here because I spent more than half my life here already.
Yeah, no, and I like that you say that, though. I think America's, like, of course, there's anything political and negative that people can say about it, but at the end of the day, it's a great place to be right now.
Yeah, if you travel enough, you go, well, this is a really great place to visit, but no, can't live here.
Right.
And because you can't say this about that, and
even just when I was in Cancun, you know, it's like,
Right.
it was really fun, amazing, like, all-inclusive resort, right? But then I'm like, I don't feel as safe everywhere I go.
Yep. Yeah, once you step outside that resort, it's real life. And one time I was on a resort in St. Lucia in the West Indies. And I was by the pool, and I looked over just further down. There was a chain link fence with kids looking in. And I thought, no, this is not how I want to spend my vacation, and I don't think I want to be here, because just the separation of the fence, but also separation of what I have and what people should have, really. And this is when I was a kid. I was 12 years old, and I recognized that this is not right.
Right.
So going as a tourist, you are privy to certain services, but if you live there, there's reality.
Right. It's not as euphoric. It's like when I visited Europe for the first time, you know, everywhere you go, it's like, oh my God, it's so magical.
I know.
This is so magical. This is so magical. And then once you return to somewhere again, you realize, okay, this is just like normal again. Okay, all these people are living their lives, and
Right.
wait, this isn't even, why aren't they smiling? You know, like, and you realize everything, all the reality of everything.
Yeah, I would like to cobble together all the best of all the countries and bring it to the States. And hopefully in 2020 we can. So we'll see where we go from here.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, obviously, where cannabis goes. And I guess a piggyback on that question is, when do you think federal legalization will happen?
Probably by 2020, but then again, it's going to take at least 3 years for everything to go through, right?
Right.
Because it has to be one law across
Yeah,
every
there's no
state.
infrastructure yet.
Yes,
So.
right? So we can already see the issues we have in California, the issues that are happening in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, right? Maryland, all the issues we have, and where one place you can't have a home grow in one state. Here we can have a home grow. So how do we write these laws to go across the board that is fair for everyone? So that's going to take. We can say it's going to go off Schedule 1, but does it go Schedule 2? Does it go off completely? And then who's going to write the laws?
Right.
And that's going to take forever. So we're going to probably cobble all this stuff, but with the money, it'll probably happen faster, but what's it going to look like? Right now in California, we're still going, oh my God, what's happening? So
Right. No, it's definitely, that's why I'm doing Cottonmouth Media, you know, just my tagline in my Instagram bio is documenting the cannabis industry, because I think there's so much to document.
Right, and just not in California. It's different in Oregon. It's Washington. I mean, Oregon has something over 1 million pounds of extra cannabis.
Wow.
On the legal market.
Right.
Where is it going to go? Is
Right.
it going into a lot of oil? But even then, their marketplace isn't big enough to support that. Until we can go across state lines. But then what is California going to do to all the cannabis grows in the states? Right? Because we're known for avocados, oranges. We're the produce basket. And also the wine, right? So will our cannabis be the premium for across the states?
Right.
So we most likely will be. Which is why you have companies from Canada building 350,000 square foot cultivations right now. Robot. Right? Why would anyone build something that big, not planning for it to be off Schedule 1?
Right. I totally agree. I think, and 2020 is quicker than I would have thought even, but...
Well, who knows because right now every Democrat going into throwing their hat into the ring is saying, yes, we should legalize, right? I don't think there's one that hasn't said it.
I think the only, like, I saw
Publisher,
a
maybe?
quick, like, you know, the arguments, I guess, that I've heard. The one Republican argument against cannabis was, oh, well, we can't have banks be allowed to do that yet because it's still a Schedule 1. So that's the only issue. It's like, okay, well then let's just take it off.
Yeah. And
That's like the quick, easy solution right there.
And then you have these retired politicians coming into it. And where's it going to go from there? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But right now, we're just before the tipping point. So we have to take advantage of that.
Totally.
So how do you feel about cannabis? What is your take on cannabis and entertainment, information, news? Where do you think it's going to go?
It's a very good question. So I think, for me personally, right, cannabis is in the very early stages, obviously, of being ultimately regulated and federally legal. So I like to think about, okay, what was the prohibition like when the prohibition transitioned from having legal alcohol to purchase? You still had people making their moonshine and people were still buying that moonshine, but it didn't last that long. People wanted a safe, trustable product that wasn't going to poison them. But fun fact, it all poisons you, right? But yeah, I think for me, right, being a part of ancillary services, much like you, doing creative work, what's going to make people most comfortable and what is it long-term marketing going to look like, and what are the laws around cannabis marketing and photography and videography going to look like? And I think the reason that I'm doing ancillary is because touching the plant is very expensive, and this is where my talents lie, right? If I were to, be trimming and actually touching the plant, or like selling any type of cannabis products, like I would need to pay a lot of money, need a lot of capital, which I think would be great to do, but I just don't have that resource right now. And so, but I think cannabis, much like alcohol commercials, you can't consume on camera, right? If in a commercial, no one can be sipping, so they get really creative in their commercials to show togetherness of Bud Lights, being friends over a lifetime, right? Whatever. And so it made people get really creative in their marketing styles, and I think cannabis is going to be no different. I don't think long term they're going to allow smoking on camera because at the end of the day, right, like it's still not, like smoking weed's not for children, and they're not going to want to show that because then that ideally would put that image into people's minds. In advertising, right? Right, in advertising. And so in my YouTube videos even, I'm trying to move away from showing explicit smoking or focusing on that as the main highlight because, I see there's, not to put any content down, but like taking a 1 gram dab glob on camera is not content. No. It's showing, it's like a challenge, right? But it's no different from any other YouTube challenge that is like harming people in some way. And it's like, it's just harmful to the health. It's not setting a good example, and it's not, it's not safe, proper use, And so I'm trying to so I started a Patreon that, okay, you want to sit down and have a sesh with Matt on camera, pay for it if you really want to support me. But I'm not going to explicitly be like, hey, we're going to smoke 5 grams today. Yeah, right. And so that's my feelings about it, is being accepting and like open, inclusive to everyone, to all types, because I want to be able to monetize my YouTube content, right? And I've gotten to the point where I have the ability to, but I'm not doing it yet, right? I want to reward my people that are supporting me early, but I want to be able to monetize those videos in 2 years, right? And so if I can have a really great argument too, that if YouTube is like, oh, this is inappropriate, well, I'm like, well, I'm blurring everything out. I'm not showing it. I'm explicitly saying that I'm not trying to smoke on camera, which not a lot of people are doing. No, because you don't want to turn into where everyone is just puffs of smoke, because it's already out there. Right. And I just, when you were talking, okay, this is my prediction, that you're really great on camera. You are well-spoken. You have a great camera voice. That one day I'll see you on MSNBC as the cannabis reporter, right? Because I can see that because of the way you carry yourself. But also, to me, that's old school. When you're smoking, sitting down and doing a huge dab, that is not appealing to the mainstream audience or marketing, because they don't want that. I was in Mo Green's and in San Francisco. Right. It was opened up by Barbary Coast. It's a consumption lounge.
And so I was in there, and there's 3 women in their 60s sitting there, all well dressed. One looked like she just came from riding her horse, and they were sitting there around a dab machine. I asked them, "So, why are you here?" Because it was very unusual to see this. And he said, "Oh, this is amazing. We read about this in a San Francisco Chronicle in the style section, and we wanted to come." And I said, "Is this your first time?" And he said, "Yes, this is our first dab." And I realized at that moment that, yes, this has been going on, but marketing to these women is through their trusted sources.
Right.
Right. San Francisco Chronicle, New York Times, Washington Post. Whatever they read that is mainstream, telling them it's okay. It's not going to come from the shows that you were talking about where someone's doing this huge ass dab and passing out.
Right. The main point, like the WeedTube, I'm sure you've heard of them.
Yeah.
I think that whole conversation about that platform in general is a really interesting conversation, right? Because even by becoming a creator on the WeedTube, you're only marketing yourself to people who heavily consume cannabis, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But I want to be that transition character for people of like my mom, Jill. Jill doesn't smoke weed, but Jill decides in 20 years, oh my gosh, you know what? I get headaches, and it's really safe now. And my same people that I was buying Excedrin from or whatever, now they have a cannabis THC product.
Right.
Where are they going to go? They're going to go to YouTube. They're not going to go to the WeedTube, and they're going to look up how to first time consume or whatever. And those are mine are the family friendly, if you will, content for that, right?
Right.
And so that's evergreen content, right? And so I think, to your point, right, it's not evergreen to be just like smoking openly huge puffs of clouds and stuff.
I think because it was just in the news yesterday, CVS signed a deal, a CBD company,
Right.
to carry their product in hemp base in 800 stores, right? So who's going to tell the new market about this product? It is probably shows like yours where it is mainstream friendly. You look like someone we can trust, of course you are, and also someone that's relatable, just like your mom Jill could relate to someone like you. Okay, they don't look like what I think they're going to be. They're giving me all this great information, and so yes, it is evergreen.
Right.
And you're already preparing the future market with what you're doing now. Just like I'm doing with magic mushrooms, I'm trying to predict the future market. You're predicting the future market now by doing what you're doing now. So you're ahead of the curve.
Thank you. I'm trying to be.
Oh, I think it's working because we have to make it palatable, right? Because even before I came into cannabis, I was like, oh, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that. And then I saw the light, and I realized, because of a family member who's sick, I realized that this is actually medicine, and that what I've been fed for years was this propaganda. And what you're doing is dispelling all that propaganda.
Yeah, because I think it was, just like watching the new normal commercial.
Yes.
Like that, that was just perfect. That was perfect because it was entertaining. It had amazing cinematography. Set design was just like blew your mind.
Right.
And it was telling an honest, truthful story and you also learned a ton. You learned so much from it. And so stuff like that, like MedMen, like I have a lot of respect for like the marketing that's happening, because it's just like it's grand, and they're normalizing though.
Yeah, MedMen. Let me tell you about that campaign.
I'm interested to hear your opinion on it. All I know is about I saw the commercial and I read the article on it. So.
Well, I mean the Spike Jonze one.
Correct.
Yeah, that was over 1 million.
Right.
Right. And to do that, you have to have. There's many reasons why they did it, because they wanted to show that they could afford $1 million commercial, that they could hire Spike Jonze from the Directors Bureau, that there was an extreme amount of money going into post. Right.
Oh yeah.
And just the casting alone was probably cost them,
for Jesse. Oh yeah,
it was huge, and also
paying a lot for Jesse.
Yeah, so that was a play to not just the general audience, but also investors.
It was a flex.
Right. And also their campaign. Do you remember the Stoner one? where it had the stoner posters and a line going through it?
Maybe.
It's a We Post poster. So it's basically had an old lady, people in mainstream, and it said, not a stoner. And it had a thing like
Right.
that.
Right.
Okay. Medman. I had a campaign about 5 months before that for Stockpot. Did exactly the same thing. I had people of color and people of ages, different ages, diversity.
Right.
And I said, not your stereotype.
Right.
And so 5 months later, they debuted with their Not a Stoner campaign. But I know production, and so for them to do it, they had to plan probably a month ahead to get the images, and probably a month before that to start the campaign. So they might have saw mine and got inspired by what I did for Stockpot. So, and my point is that everything that some cannabis companies do is very calculated for a certain outcome.
Right.
And that is either IPO, buyouts, or mergers. So that is the thinking that's coming into cannabis. Before, it was just trying not to get arrested.
Right.
Trying to keep your retail open amongst all the other black market stores around you. Now it is, how are we going to pay back everyone, and how do we cash out? So you're going to see a lot of that happening now, where before 6 years ago you would never say, can I see your deck?
Right.
Right? My deck of what? Right?
I got 52 cards.
I know. So now it's like, do you have a deck? Do you have a deck? And cannabis is now a commodity. Rather, it's gone from medicine to commodity.
Right.
And we cannot shove it back into the bottle or the toothpaste back into the tube. We just have to now at least try and manage to keep the foundation still alive.
Right. I think for me, like as a person, I was very blessed growing up with amazing parents that led me to have a lot of confidence and in myself, in my abilities, and my happiness a lot of it stems from that great parenting, you know. And I think my use of cannabis is 95% recreational, you know, and it's turned into the point though where like I'm such a self-aware human that I know I'm using it in a medical purpose for recreational use,
right?
If that makes sense. And so I'm ideally trying to be an advocate for recreational use, because back to that thing I was just saying, you know, 5 drunk guys are starting to fight, 5 stoned guys are starting a band. I think you have like just the example when we were in Cancun at a club and there was a bunch of drunk people around and they're all dancing and there's loud music. And you have a lot of guys being really creepy to the girls that I'm hanging out with.
Right.
And okay, if everyone was smoking weed though, everyone would be passing the joints to each other, high-fiving, like laughing hysterically. Everyone goes to bed early. It's like the world would be a lot less aggressive and people individually would be more self-aware.
And healthier too, because even using it recreationally, you're still intaking medicine.
Right.
So if you ingest through an edible, you're still getting all the cannabinoids. And by lighting up, you're getting cannabinoids. And you can't say that about alcohol, that your body's benefiting from it. You can't say, oh, you need a glass of red wine every day for your heart and so forth. But that's one glass, right? Where no one can stop at one glass.
Right.
And then it tips over from being beneficial to not. But cannabis is, even though you're recreational, you are still doing medically, because it's still helping your body in the way too.
Absolutely, and I'm just helping my endocannabinoid system work to its full advantage.
Right.
So
it's healing as you're having fun.
Right. It's just like people that are self-aware of their diets and who do intermittent fasting, right? It's like, okay, I just know I don't eat and my body is using its liver to its full potential now.
Yeah, that's a hot one too. I bet you're probably the second person this week who's talked about
intermittent fasting.
Yes, it's like, oh, that's You're just not going to eat for, what, 8 hours? Is it?
Right.
Or
So
a
I mean,
day?
it's like 8 hours roughly, but it's like you eat one meal a day essentially. If you're like a really intense intermittent faster, you just eat one really large meal at the end of your day.
I'm going to have this pie. Give me this 10 hot dogs.
And then people are like ketoed with it too, and so
Oh, yeah.
it's like it's definitely a huge community like that. The CBD community, health
Right.
benefit community, that's all intertwining right now, and that's also an interesting topic that we could just dive into.
Oh, yeah, because
but
I'm in keto.
I was super into powerlifting and bodybuilding when I was at Cal Poly. I went to Cal
Oh,
Poly
wow.
San Luis Obispo. And I was very passionate about that at the time because that was like that's how I got my. I used to be an athlete in high school, so I was like, I gotta stay fit. And being really involved with my fitness and being self-aware of my body. My mom is really hypersensitive to foods. She has an allergy to preservatives and MSG.
Wow.
And so my mom, every restaurant, what's in this? Does it have MSG? Does it have preservatives? No. Okay. And just being aware of my body and that, and then also consuming cannabis now, it all comes together. You want to be physically fit to your highest potential. Maybe smoking weed after your workout before you get in your nutrition is best for your recovery, right?
Right. Also, we're going to be ahead when these zombies attack because they're going to be healthier and we can run faster.
That's right.
So that's all I'm planning is like when the dawn of the dead happens, I'm thinking, okay, I got a pretty good BMI. My knees are still good. Just grab this backpack full of weed and just run.
And a couple shrooms.
Oh, yes, of course. And seeds and everything, and then head for the hills. So I think our community probably, because...
Live longer.
Oh, yeah. The OGs have been skirting and moving in secret. So if you want to stay alive when the zombies attack, hang with someone who smokes weed.
It's true. So what is it like? You're involved with Aura, right? You're the executive
Oh, yeah, creative director.
creative director.
Yeah.
What is that like?
Oh, it's really interesting because I need to pay my bills. Stockpile's pretty good. It's in the black, but everything goes back into it. So with Aura, was this, again, another career. It's building on what I've done before, which has been a career director for about 15 years, and marketing. And now I have, it's peanut butter and chocolate. I can put two together, and they go really well. So with Aura, we are basically a turnkey. We do financial, right? We look at your financial health, what you want to do, and then build everything on that with your marketing strategy. So right now we just took in a new client, and it's one that I've wanted to work with for about at least 4 years. And so I'm really excited about working on that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so there's about 21 of us in the company, and there are some OGs from cannabis in there. Jim McAlpine, Gaynell Rogers, who brought Harborside to where it is now, and also she basically gave Steve D'Angelo the path to where he is now. So we're all in this together.
That's awesome. And Aura is traded, right?
No. We are under the umbrella of a large equity firm.
Okay.
So the equity firm built this to service their properties, but also to bring in clients as well. So we only take in 5 a year.
Okay. That's an interesting thought of publicly traded cannabis.
Well, yeah, because look, Canadians, Canopy,
Right.
Aurora.
And Martha Stewart is...
I know. Now no one can call themselves a Martha Stewart of cannabis because Martha Stewart's in cannabis. So they'll have to find another one. I'm the Rachel Ray of cannabis.
But so your email is hilarious because it says not related to Tommy.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a topic?
When I first began, because the community was, again, not as large as now because it's exponential, people say, hey, can you introduce me to Tommy? I said, no, don't know him. But then I thought, okay, for 5,000 I will, right?
Right.
But I never did that. So, because, again, it's being the raisin in a room full of marshmallows, there are not that many people of color back then. Now, of course, we're increasing, but it's still not enough because there's so many hurdles, which is why I went into ancillary. But also, I'll be not so ancillary, hopefully, if something happens in April. then I will be touching more of the plant, like directly.
Nice. Yeah. I long term, I would like to be more involved with the actual plant. I think I've consumed a decent amount of cannabis the last 5 years, but you know, when I was reading more articles about you, I definitely saw that you were saying you had 5 tips in a Medium article about 5 tips of success for cannabis, and the 5th tip is growing weed.
I think so, because if you want to know everything about the plant and be able just to talk about it, then you need just to see the stages and why she is the way she is and why she prefers certain things, and then it just feels like a accomplishment that you grew something and now you can trim it, and then you appreciate how hard it is to trim and how hard it is to keep mold and mildew and bugs and all the stuff off your plants, and appreciate the cultivator, what they have to go through. It gives you appreciation for the industry as a whole, of where everyone came from and why this plant is
what it took
so special.
it took to finally be chiefing it up.
Yes, because it had to get here somehow, and it went through so many hands before it got there, and each hand, of course, is taxed now in California, but the people sitting there trimming those little buds, there had to be someone doing this, and who is that person? Right.
No, and I want to be, you know, specifically like this people podcast about people in cannabis. I definitely want to talk to trimmers. You know? I want to talk to the bud tenders. Oh, also a quick question.
Sure.
You said our newest. You sent me something. Remember when we were
about
exchanging emails?
the meme?
It was that a meme of the bud tenders?
Oh yeah. So I do a lot of, because I have this thing about being observant. I observe a lot of types and personalities, and what I do is create these things. And the one I showed you was bud tenders, and the 8 different kinds of bud tenders there are. And I can give some to you so you can post if you want. But there's all kinds of people in this industry, and I would say 90% of them are in for the right reasons. 10% you just have to avoid, but that's just life in general. Right.
That's any industry.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I've definitely I've dealt with people. I won't name the company because I don't want to name names per se, but they screwed me over, and now they're going to be one of the most popular products on the planet, I think. And they're not good people, though. The owners, at least, that started it.
A lot of people who own companies aren't good people. Yeah. Because it takes a certain type of personality, and
except for me, right?
Yeah, of course, you. Yeah,
you.
but look at our president, right? So if that's an example of who's at the top, there are people like that at the top of every company and every industry, and we just have to be able to be a community and support each other. So
you don't want to be a Steve Jobs.
No. Well, yeah. Every genius has something. Like, Edison, Tesla, they're there because there are certain personality traits that push them that hard.
Right. I think stuff like Elon Musk, he's a really good example of someone that it's I guess the saying in Silicon Valley is friends don't let friends work for Elon Musk.
Right.
But to your point, it's like he's doing something that is so beneficial to humanity, but I don't know. I guess Steve Jobs, I don't know enough about him, but I think just the idea of hurting other people in the short term to get what you need to get in the long term is just, I don't agree with it. I'd rather take a money loss in the short term and have everyone be happy. Right. And that's going to lead to way more fruition down the line. Right.
Because if you look at dynasties, Joseph Kennedy was not a good man. Yet he brought one son into the presidency, another one as attorney general. So.
But to your point, one of them also was shot and killed, right?
Right. Both of them. Too.
Right. Yeah.
And another one went off a bridge, right? And so.
Not to say that that's karma, but it's like.
It's just. We are where we are because there's some people who are Oh gosh, I mean, look at Getty, right? Standard Oil.
Yeah.
How do they have to get there to where they are now? And there's a lot of blood that this country's built on. Oh, on that deep thought, let's smoke some joints later tonight.
For real. I guess what's your favorite part about what you do in cannabis?
Oh my gosh. Meeting people like you, I think is my favorite part because I've met so many amazing people that I'm thinking if I never went into this, I would not have met da 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 and then da 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 and all this. And
Right.
I think that's the most amazing part. If just coming into the cannabis industry and meeting all these people is the best thing ever that happened. All right, whether whatever I do eventually disappears or it doesn't work, at least I have all these people now I call friends.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best things ever. I really love this community so much.
Yeah, no, I definitely like all the people, like meeting Sam, you know, he
Oh, yeah.
introduced us, and like going to Blunt Talks, like that is just like the epitome of it, you know. It's just you come together and you can all just, everyone bonds so instantaneously over cannabis, and it's like, it's okay, yeah, sure, if you're watching from an outside perspective, yeah,
Right.
obviously, but I think it's a much more love and empathy driven industry because its fruition is happening at a turning point in business.
Right,
So-
and poor Sam too. I've told him off a couple times, and a couple times I was well, I think I was both times I was wrong, but to me it's like, Sam, what are you doing? What? I feel like at this point I'm his second mother. Come on, but I'm the mother that's wrong. I always go back. Oh, I'm sorry. I spoke too soon. So
Yeah.
Sam and I had that relationship. Every time he hears from me, he goes, "Oh, okay. What did I do?" I said, "No, I thought about it. You're not wrong. I am." So I have to. That's my mea culpa to Sam. I'm sorry. So
I'm sure he forgives you.
I hope so.
But thank you again for
Thank you.
having me in your home.
Yes, I love Cottonmouth.
Being on the Bongcast.
Well, hey, yes, and in about 8 hours, I will light up a joint and say thank you so much for this.
And I will thank you in about 8 hours back. I'll set a timer and we'll smoke.
I know.
We'll
Thank you.
FaceTime, right?
Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy to be here.
I hope you guys enjoyed this 5th episode of the Bongcast with Ophelia. And Ophelia, thank you so much for having me in your space and sharing your honest story with me. I really am grateful for you and for all of the guests that were on season 1. You are all amazing. I owe you, and I'm super happy that I had the pleasure of bonding and getting to know these people in cannabis better. And these are real people with real stories that are kicking some serious ass. And I am stoked to be able to call them my friends and colleagues, to be able to support one another. Because that's what it's all about in the cannabis space and in entrepreneurship. I'm glad that I got to meet all of these people. Season 2 of the Bongcast will be coming out this summer. I've already recorded a couple of bonus episodes. Season 1 was more about California and really Southern California. And season 2, we're extending it to all of the United States, you know, minus Alaska and Hawaii. So thanks for listening or watching or whatever it is you did to this podcast. But I'm glad you did it. And I hope to have you back for season 2 of the Bongcast as we head around the United States documenting the people in cannabis. But otherwise, yo, I'll see you guys in the next Cottonmouth Podcast. Peace.
Yeah. Baby girl, you're so damn fine, though. Wanna know if I can hit it from behind, though. I'm sipping on you like some fine wine, though. When it's over, I press rewind, though.
Cotton Mouth Meteor.